A wonderful morning to all of you. It's Father's Day, and I've tried over the years, if I could find someone that would take that Sunday, and usually I wish the ladies would return the favor. We do Mother's Day, so maybe they ought to do Father's Day. I haven't been too successful. Joel, you've come as close as anybody, so thank you. I'd like to give you, first of all, today a little bit of a biblical picture of what the Bible shares with us about fathers. I think that the position and the role of a father is of God's design, and it's eternal. It's a name-changing event. We put it in a story form so that we wouldn't forget it, and to share God's family design. From Genesis we read, God gave Adam a partner. He called her Eve. Not long after that, Adam was called father by his children. End of the Bible story. Well, in every language, the pattern is much the same, and culture. We also substitute the word dad for father. And then, many years had passed, and Moses asked God one day up on the mountain if he could put in a rule, and that was that we honor fathers and mothers. And so ever since that, a part of what we call the commands of God is that we honor father and mother. Well, that saved the day for fathers, and it's a position of honor. While I was home, the thoughts occurred to me during the week that I said, I think that's the end of my sermon. You know how it started. You know what it's about. What can I say? Well, I looked at the clock and it hasn't really moved much yet since I've been up here. I thought, well, I could just dismiss everybody, be the shortest sermon you ever heard, and then we could all go home. And then I thought everything else is changing today. That isn't a good idea to introduce that today. We may try it another time. Well, I slept on the idea. And wouldn't you know, God sometimes just wakes you up in the middle of the night and he gives you something to think about. And he sure did me. And so I felt God said to me, why don't you tell the congregation your experience with your father? And maybe they could, while that happens, they could look back and put themselves in the picture with their father, much as Joel did today. And so, Jesus used stories to help the disciples remember his message. And I think sometimes the stories that we experience in our life, if we share them, many times sense of direction. When I decided that maybe I would tell a story of my father, I realized it was very personal. And that's always dangerous. And so I'll try to begin and see how I get through it. The life of a father. It began when a child begins to say, Daddy. Mother told me it was one of the first words I learned to say. Harvey Kirschensteiner was my father, and I gave him a new name. Now his name was Father. Somewhere in those early years, I think it was after I learned some of the Bible stories, I thought my dad was like Samson. And then he said, remember, never enter the house with muddy shoes. I forgot a few times. Then one day he said, do you want to help me? Oh my, help Dad? Wow, what fun to be a helper. He trusted me. And so we watered the lawn, we shoveled snow, we fed the chickens, and on and on. I tagged along. I was Dad's helper. And he would often say, you're doing fine. And one day then he took me aside and he said, I heard you and Mother had a meeting in the woodshed. Would you like to talk about it? I said, not really. I didn't think of it at the time, but later I said, he knew all the time what was the issue, or he wouldn't have talked to me in the first place. So, that's all in the life of a father, I guess. Skipping now quite a few years, I found myself doing chores after school. Somewhere along the way, he talked and started me on an allowance. And he said, that way you can learn to spend your own money. That was cool, wasn't it? He said, someday you'll make a good father. At the time, it didn't mean a thing to me. Now I have to fast forward again. I found myself in high school, age 17, moving toward graduation in the year 18. I talked of getting a car. Dad had already taught me how to drive, not just the tractor, but his truck and the car. I could take it around on the farm. Well, he was helpful and he helped me pick out a car. But then I would need a job outside of the family chores to pay for it. Now I had to look for a job. And then it happened. My life exploded. I don't know how else to describe it. My tiny world exploded. Dad had suffered for 10 to 12 years before that with back trouble. And he went to doctors after doctors and did didn't come up with solutions. And then a new doctor happened to come to our hometown. And of course, mothers insisted, you better go talk to that new doctor, see what he has to say. I never forgot that next conversation when he came home. Doc said, I can tell you a whole bunch of things you can try, and most of them I have. He said, when you walked in the door, I knew your problem. Now do you want to sit down and